What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Trey at SailSKG,
Hey everyone, it's Lisa at Burgos.move.
and welcome back to the Reset. Today, today we're gonna talk about something that can seem very fearful, negative, but it's just a reality that I feel a lot of people just aren't really realizing, or maybe you are realizing and you want to just kind of join the conversation that we have, and it's about the job layoff situation
Man, there's so many.
in 2024 has record numbers right now, and it's only been 2 months into it, with a long way to go in 2024, and most of it is really in the sector that you hold down, baby, is the tech world.
Yeah.
You got any input on that? How you feel about that?
I mean, it's sad because tech has opened so many doors for me in my career. I mean, my background and my degree is in law. I never knew I was going to be in tech, but that's where I'm at right now. And so it really just makes me sad because basically it's the tech world just, one, not taking accountability,
Right.
and then two, also overestimating where their businesses are going to be based off of a tech boom that we had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad because this could be a industry that you could really thrive in. And so for seeing so many posts on LinkedIn of people struggling to find their next position, or I don't know, just being pushed around a little bit from job to job, it's just hard to see.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an alarming thing. I mean, I feel like every time I go on Twitter, every new day, I'm getting a post or an update of some company.
Yeah.
And it's not just tech anymore, but, tech is obviously a big dominating sector in our economy and our society now. So you're going to see that. I have a couple of stats and facts from these articles that I researched, and they're all online. I'll cite them as I go. But I want to know, based off of what I've read, if I ask you this question, what you're going to say, and see if it falls in line. And that's, I mean, outside of the accountability factor, what else do you think is really factoring into these layoffs? Just if you had to assume.
So I think what happened in 2020 for the pandemic is, so tech is an industry you can work from home.
Yeah.
So I think that what people thought was going to happen was in 2020, because people had to shift from work from home, that people are going to be using technology more. So that means they're going to be doing things at home more.
Yeah.
Which brings them away from the brick and mortar, grocery shopping, whatever, like other things that you might use an app for now.
Right.
And so they overhired.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that we're settling into the fourth year after the pandemic, where your numbers are becoming more realistic again,
Right.
you can't afford to keep these extra people on.
Right.
I think that's one. I think two, which is something that I see companies doing a lot, is hiring people, and now that they've gained seniority within your company, they are required to have, and I say required because that's my standard when I lead a team, of now having more responsibilities, more titles, and therefore more pay.
Yeah.
And instead of paying someone what they're worth, I'm going to bring a newbie in that's going to not need as much money.
Sure.
So those, I think, are the two top things why, or reasons why, in my opinion, the layoffs are happening within tech.
Absolutely. And I mean, it falls very much in line with what I have on businessinsider.com as to why there are major layoffs. And it says here 38% of business leaders surveyed by Resume Builder think layoffs are likely at their companies this year, and around half say their companies will implement a hiring freeze. So that falls in line with what you were saying about overhiring people,
Right, for sure.
because this has been bleeding in from 2023's effects. And, it's just going to keep rippling and come. But you can kind of see that the source was that 2020 time period, which we'll get to a little bit later about the significance during that time personally. But you also said the newbies, hire a newbie. Yes, obviously they can get a physical person, but it says here another major factor is artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's true.
And around 4 in 10 respondents said they'll conduct layoffs as they replace workers with AI, with Dropbox, Google, and IBM have already announced job cuts for that very reason. And those are some of the big tech giants that people use on a day-to-day. Do you agree with that too?
Yeah, I do. I think the smart companies are using AI to help their employees, but obviously, it's the cheapest, faster, repeatable route.
Right.
And that's what capitalism kind of stands on, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, it's definitely alarming. I think we still have a long, long way to go before artificial intelligence can really dominate the entirety of a company. Right now, they're just kind of implementing it slowly but surely. But, eventually, it literally will just be a computer running it. So ultimately, you only need one person to check on a computer, right?
Right.
If it gets to that point, what are we left with? Are we gonna see a shift in the industries and trades that happen? Is it gonna even exist? It's kind of worrisome. You seen that Black Mirror episode?
No.
Where it's in the future. This one had Daniel.
Black Mirror scares me. So,
Okay,
but
yeah. I don't even know why. I don't even know why I asked that so casually. Like I don't know that you don't like that. This one just happened to be one of the ones that I caught. Interestingly enough, is the Daniel Kaluuya one, where he's waking up every day like in this black pod, has the hologram and stuff like that to watch programs, everything that's going on. But when he's at work, all he has to do is get on the bike. And I'm talking on an electronic one.
Oh, okay.
Because they're just going by shifts and fueling that computer. They're generating the energy from those bikes. Yeah. I mean, I am. I can't even say I'm not like a conspiracy theorist on that. But I'm not like extreme like that, y'all. Don't get that twisted. I just have an open mind enough to consider the validity of some of these theories, and it's very plausible.
I mean, these movies and shows and TVs don't come from nothing.
Right.
They come from a mind just like ours that created this, and multiple minds. So if multiple minds can think of this being as an option, why wouldn't a business try that?
Come on now.
I did want to point out something also when it comes to the tech layoffs, and I'm noticing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't taken a big look at numbers and stuff, but I think also something that I also made this mistake is in acting as if these large corporations in tech are gonna be the ones that are gonna hold you down forever. So, some of the big three in tech that you just outlined, they're the ones that are going to be have the ability to lay off more individuals.
It's going to be volatile, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the need.
And it's going to be departments and several types of people and you're like employee 5, I don't even know, like 9,000 some odd, whatever.
Yeah.
So I made that shift slowly. Like I went from a mid-sized company to now what I would call a small tech company.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad I made the shift when I did, but if I had not made that shift, and like where I know some people are 20 years into big three,
Yeah.
and then got laid off.
Right.
I mean, the diversity in your portfolio just isn't there.
Right.
And sometimes that's harder to accept for other companies.
Damn. I didn't even really consider that, but yeah, I mean, when they ask experience and, they see 25 years of Google and you came up and started in 1997 with them, it's like, come on, how much of the actual knowledge do you have?
That shift is happening, and I'm watching that happen with recruitment.
Crazy.
Is before it used to be the loyalty of how long you were at a company, right?
Right.
But now what I'm seeing is how well you can be put up with adversity through each company that you're with.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was interviewing, it would be like, what did you do? They wouldn't ask me necessarily, like, I mean, obviously being at a big three is impressive, but it's not the only thing that they are asking me in interviews. It's asking me what challenges I faced during that time.
Right.
It's what I came up with. Now, some of these interviews are outrageous. I'm not going to lie, in the tech industry where you're doing 4 to 6 weeks of interviews.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Why are we asking people to do for like an amount weeks worth of work for an interview when they don't get paid?
Right.
Today I actually saw a girl literally document on TikTok her journey of being laid off. So she was laid off in April 2023.
Yeah.
She finally, every month she would report, this is how many jobs, and I'm talking like she would do like 10 to 20 applications a month.
Yeah.
She finally got a job yesterday.
Damn. Say that number again.
April 2023.
Yeah.
10 to 20 applications a month.
Yeah.
And she got a job in 2024 February.
Yeah, almost a whole year.
Almost, yeah.
And
probably like, so now we can say like at least 900 applications?
Minimum. Well, no. If we're talking 10 to 20, you're talking about almost 300.
300.
About 300.
Damn, I'm so bad at math.
No, that's all good. I didn't want. Maybe I was trying to trying to give you that, but I can't.
Thinks about this.
I can't agree with that. Knowing math. Oh my goodness, that's funny. Still love you. It's all good. Yeah, I mean, and that again is just a reality that a lot of people, I mean, listeners included, have probably had to face. It's one of those things to where, that just common job, you can't just expect to apply to 3 jobs in a week and then get a job landed on one of them.
Especially
by the
if
next
you do
week.
Such a niche job.
And not
like product manager 3.
And forget even just landing the job, landing an interview.
Yeah.
Because that process now is so automated and so non-personable. You have to go through tests sometimes. You have to conduct your own interview questions and answers and record them and then have an actual in-person interview or maybe a Zoom call interview. It's like, by the end of it, you've spent, an entire month just trying to get this one job.
The last 2 jobs after I got laid off, the one previous to this and the one I'm currently in, all have been referral based.
That's the best way.
Because I cold emailed, cold applied for several months, went through an agency to build my resume, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I got one interview.
Yep. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean, that's going to always stand.
For sure.
At least in our lifetime. If you don't realize that, the sooner you can realize that, the better off you're likely to be. because that's just really what it takes. If you want to get just, and I'm talking like now, because what's even crazier is just the wage discrepancy based on the profits. We can talk about that kind of in a whole different episode, but the profit margins that these companies have versus holding and dangling these wages amongst their employees, making that $60,000 a year, that $75,000 a year, which is great money, by the way, in this day and age. If you're making that, hats off to you.
Yeah.
But they are going to be like, they're going to hold that against you, though, and let you know that you are replaceable, and show you that if you don't conform or if you don't accept just what we give you with absolutely zero disruption, you're not going to be there.
100%.
Enjoy this while it lasts, because it's not forever. That's basically what these companies are saying and just showing you. I haven't even gotten to the numbers yet. I mean, like, this portion right here is staggering in the fact that, so talk about 2023. In 2023, it was nearly 263,000 tech employees got laid off. Just tech, by the way. This is on CNBC.com. This is where I got this information. 263,000 tech employees got laid off, averaging to about 720 layoffs each day that year. Almost, you closer to 1,000 than you are 100 at that point. Almost 1,000 a day, we could say, at that point. Now, in 2024, so far, it's been 42,324 tech employees were let go. That number, if that remains at this rate, is at 780 layoffs. So that now we're actually getting closer to that, because now we're almost at 800 layoffs a day happening on average as it stays. And they have a nice sublink that I'm about to tap on the CNBC.com link. It's called Layoffs.FYI. If you just wanted to grab this information on your own and just see it for yourself, I mean, it updates and tracks the tech sector layoffs. So I just told you that based on that article, which came out, this was published Saturday, February 24th. And I just said 42,000 employees have been let go so far. The layoffs.fyi has it now to 49,386. You see that, right, baby?
Yeah.
186 tech companies. And it's like, whoa. When you see that, it can show you the number, and it'll show you the percentage amount based on that company. Bumble, shout outs to Bumble. That's a new one, 227. They just laid off 350 workers. That's 30% of their staff. They just laid off 30%.
That is so heartbreaking, because that's, what was the number, 370?
350.
350 families.
Yeah. This is in Austin. That's where their headquarters is at.
I mean, I think in my, we talk about this a lot with me because, again, I'm in tech, and I always am like, okay, well, this is the plan if we were to get laid off. If I was going to get laid off or whatever.
Right.
I think if I were to get laid off from this position, or if this, my position now, I do have more security in the position I'm in right now. But,
absolutely.
If anything were to happen, I think I would move away from tech.
I mean, why wouldn't you? You have a skill set that can be utilized elsewhere. You have the credentials to really do any type of administrative work in any office, whatever you choose. Yeah. At that point, the sky's the limit.
I hope so. I mean, me saying that still just kind of like, oof, I don't have that experience. But sure. I can't even imagine what the generation before or after us is thinking right now.
The younger
Yeah.
generation? Uh, I mean, I think, you know, they're on the forefront of just technology anyway, so they're getting this information and understanding. I'm not gonna go that route. You're gonna see a lot more, and this is the sector that I've really been in since 2020. Maybe not full time, but being an entrepreneur, where you run your own business or you create your own money, monetize something that you do. You're gonna see a lot more of that. These kids, especially, during that time with the GameStop and the AMC trading on the stock market, they converted that and they do Bitcoin now and just all the cryptocurrencies. Like, I mean, cryptocurrency right now, oddly enough, ironically enough, is shooting up.
Yeah.
Because so much money's getting freed up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people, they're just investing back in that, and that's a way that you can really get your money back. Because say if you've held on to your Bitcoin since X amount of time, before it was even worth, say, $50,000. I don't know what it is officially right now today, but I know earlier this week it hit like 63,000. So if you have about $10,000 right there worth of Bitcoin, let's say, you probably got a nice chunk of change.
Right.
You probably saw, I would say, another almost $2,500 additional.
Do you think that trade work is going to come back?
Well, yes, but it's going to be different types of trades at the end of it. You're going to see a lot more electricians, a lot more welding and stuff like that. But like, bricklaying and stuff, those type of industries are shying away more and more just based on the materials and availability in the world. So you can't really hang your hat on those. Coding, I would really consider coding to almost be a trade.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to get a degree for it, but at the same time you don't.
No, I've seen people go through boot camps.
Yeah, and you can just learn,
Yeah.
whatever certifications and accreditations that you have. Again, that's more so who you know to get you into the door. As long as you have that capability, you're set. Obviously, culinary arts is a trade. That's hit or miss just because the restaurant industry is going down the drain.
Yeah.
It's all about carry out. It's all about carry out now. So, I mean, yes, you'll have chefs, but you don't need round-the-clock chef work because, companies are closing at certain times, and also just you're not having as many customers dine in. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think it's going to kind of go, people are going to stop spending so much money out.
Yeah.
Because of the economy, but no, kind of going back to the layoffs, like, what has your, experience been through layoffs?
My biggest and only was when I got furloughed from the car dealership. I told that story, I think, in the second episode, briefly. Just, this was when COVID was first hitting and jobs were shutting down and furloughs were happening, and they were assuring us that it wasn't going to happen. And then, like, that same day after that meeting, we got the email letting us know that 50% of the company was getting gone.
So what's the difference between a furlough and a layoff?
So a layoff is you're just done. Furlough gives you the opportunity to come back.
At a certain period of time.
Correct.
Okay.
And they put that there just to have some liability, but they only brought back who they wanted to. At the end of it, and you truly couldn't bring, because we had 40 salesmen on the floor. We had a huge dealership. I had recently come back, and I think, it was about 30 total So 10 less, but even at that point, it was still too much. They would have been fine with 15 and everybody would eat. But it's just that greed of just wanting as much volume as possible because deals take long in that industry. But so yeah, I got furloughed, didn't get to come back, but you know, I got the unemployment package. I got my 401k out with no penalty, and I also got the national unemployment on top of the state. So when you compound that together, I mean, I couldn't really complain. You know, I was getting almost $6,000 a month, like clockwork, for 8-9 months straight. Now, should I have been a lot more wise with that? Potentially. But it created a lot of opportunities, and I got to learn a lot and just not feel guilty about my spending or what was going on. Because number one, I couldn't work. And number two, you know, I'm acquiring things that can eventually make me more money. Like my MacBook, or not my MacBook, the iMac, the studio, my LLC. All of those things are kind of getting set in play for me to really map that out. I got to travel a lot because plane tickets were cheap. You know, I risked it. Obviously, took a mask and everything. Everything was masked up where you went. But, you know, once you got there, I mean, you were there. And, you know, just got to experience life and was okay. But the struggle of it was and has been just with even finding part-time work is, you know, they're at a capacity. They don't need anybody extra. They're putting these applications out so that the connection that they know can just access it and they can close that out and be done.
Right.
All the other applicants, like, I mean, you may as well just play the lottery at that point. If you don't know anybody, if you don't know how to follow up or do those things, it's a slippery slope that I hope a lot of people can avoid. But for some, unfortunately, that's going to be unavoidable. And that's a shame because nobody deserved it. Their families didn't deserve it, and the people didn't deserve it. Because the one thing that I really just will stand on my business for is that concept and that perception with millennials that we don't like to work or that we're lazy, ungrateful with it, all of those things. That's not the case at all. The hardest workers that I know are the people that I grew up with,
Right.
you know, and have seen now just really just transform their lives.
Yeah. I think it's just the work has to make sense to us.
Correct.
We're just not going to work just to work.
We're working smarter, not harder.
We're not going to, you know, you're telling me 40 hours here. I'm not going to work overtime for you just because you misaligned your schedules. I'm not going to work, because, like, again, kind of like what we're talking about in this scenario, when it's time for you to let me go,
yeah,
you don't give me any notice.
None.
I mean, my layoff story was I got a 15-minute conversation randomly put on my calendar, literally on our first date.
Yep. I remember that.
And they were just like, so your position was eliminated. You have two options. You can either take your exit package or you can interview for a position within the company in a different department.
Yep.
Now, normally I would be like, oh, why don't I look at the positions internally?
Yeah.
But it's not, when I say these tech interviews are crazy, I was like, okay, let me look at this other team. I went to that team and I started talking to them. They know my background. They know my work history because I've worked in another department within your company.
Yeah.
But you want me to take 4 weeks to interview with you as if I'm a new candidate. Why would I then not go to another company
yeah,
that doesn't know my salary,
right,
doesn't know, like, and so I could negotiate more for myself.
Yeah.
Where you could just go to HR and figure out what I used to make and then offer me the same amount and I'd be happy.
Right.
And so I made the decision to take the exit package. Now, I was pretty lucky. I mean, I had been working there for a really long time, so they paid me out. They kept me on payroll for 4 weeks, and then additionally, after that, I pretty much got like 5 months worth of salary. I had stock, so those two things adding up was really good for me financially. And then I just transferred my 401k, so I still have that for myself. But
Yeah.
I was pretty lucky. Again, that was because I had worked there a fair amount of time and I earned that package.
Yeah.
But then, so I took some time for myself. I think that was like June, August, and then I started looking again in October, and I didn't land anything until November. So I wasn't in the job market for very long, but the job I took, I did it based off of referral.
Yeah.
I stayed in for almost like 8 months.
Yep.
And I wasn't like 100% happy with the job, but I didn't want to not be in a position where I don't have a job.
Right.
And then and that was the first time after that I left a job. I never quit.
Yeah.
And then, which was a really hard thing for me to do because, again, just quitting is a stigma. But when I quit, it was for my mental health, which was something that was a stigma that I sat with for way too long. Like, I didn't grow up with that mentality.
Right.
Your mental health didn't really matter.
Yeah.
When it came to like work and things and how I was raised.
Sure.
So when I left, it was good for me to leave and do that for myself. And then a couple of months later again in November. So I quit in August, and then I took some time for myself again. Yep. And then in November I was offered the position I've been in now, and I've been there for, isn't it crazy? I've been there for almost like a year and some change.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, this will be your second year, full year come November.
Yeah.
And, it's obviously, like it, our relationship started with that journey for you and was kind of in the middle of it with mine, transitioning out. And it's been beautiful to kind of see and work with just together. Mm-hmm. And talk it through and make it work. It doesn't work without that type of work. And I'm not talking just getting a job, just that intentional work with each other and know where our mental states are, where our happiness level is, where we need to adjust and work on, no different than what these companies do for themselves to improve and be efficient. If we gotta kind of mirror that and chameleon that, blend in with it, and just, make it part of our success for each other. And it's been truly rewarding. It's been I think the funnest thing is just, even with repetition and consistency, like not one day is the same.
Yeah.
We don't really carry a bad day into the next day. Mm-mm. Because, we talked about that last episode. That's all perception in our mind. So, wanted to bring that type of point up to anybody that listens to, understand that it's okay to not be okay.
100%. Because
me?
this job, but I also and I also know this is a privilege to say, but if you can take some time to yourself and really figure out who you are, maybe sit in the emotion, because it is really emotionally exhausting to be laid off. Like, just in general of how much, like, for me, I had been with the company, I started with the company in 2017.
Yeah.
And I was laid off in 2021.
Right.
So, significant amount of time. Like, we had made it through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And everything. And I went through, like, a lot. And then, I had to come to the realization that where my salary was at 2021, in order for me to get into the position I am now,
yeah,
I had to take a salary cut. I had to make those adjustments and those expectations. And now I'm rebuilding that salary. I think I'm now equal to what I used to make in 2021. So
Right.
it took 3 years to get there.
Yeah.
And I get people going from job to job and they're saying, hey, like, when you go from one job, negotiate your salary. But I think for me, I just had to be realistic on my experience level and things of that sort.
Sure.
So now I'm kind of equal amount of what I used to make in 2021, which is crazy to think about because I never thought I was going to go backwards in a sense. But
Right.
we're coming to that, and I'm now feeling like the ground is stable, but also the trauma doesn't go away.
No.
So you're like always like, okay, do I have enough savings? I want to make sure that I have like at least 2 months worth of rent,
Yeah.
all these things just in case something doesn't fall through as we hoped it would.
Yeah.
So just taking a moment and sitting down with those feelings and really just rest assured that either you're going to continue the path that you're on because you're going to find something that aligns with you, or you're going to get a redirection, and that redirection is going to be so important. And
Right.
I think like you're in that right now.
Yeah.
Like you with that calling and that redirection, because once you figure out the redirection, it's such a beautiful way to then start owning who you are and your path.
Yeah.
And so not being fearful of those plans, but it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel super emotional. I mean, putting all that time and effort into a company and then them just letting you go based off of one little Zoom call, it's very frustrating. And I just literally was so hopeless. But at the same time, there are other people that are going through this, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are companies that are hiring, they are empathizing,
Yeah.
and you will find the right place for yourself as long as you're persistent enough to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it's all about just keeping your head up and moving one foot after the other. It's just slow motion is better than no motion. Put it that way, and just give yourself that grace and that grace period if your life can allow that. And it's interesting enough that you said you're not alone, because I'm also on LinkedIn. I found this article because I was just looking up, trying to find some facts elsewhere to have for this discussion. And this is the editor at LinkedIn News. Her name is Ruiki Shin, and it updates. So she updates this, and it's had a couple of updates since I last checked on it a couple of days ago, but it begins and it says, as the year began, 85% of workers, based on whatever survey was out there, said that they feared being laid off in 2024. So 85%. So there's only 15% that aren't having those worries and those fears and those anxieties or having to deal with that reality. But 85%, you know, that's pretty significant across the board. And, you know, what I liked about this article and this link particular is she gives you the fact and then obviously puts the hyperlink in for you to cite the source. That's pretty much all that I did. Whichever ones that caught my interest, I just tapped on the link and just extended that research further. You know, one of the big ones that recently just happened, video game, EA, Electronic Arts, is laying off 5% of its 13,400 employees and will also reduce office space. Universal Music Group is planning to lay off some employees this year in order to cut costs. The news comes after the company reported an increase in profits last year. You know, Paramount did that as well. I can't see that
Well,
one.
these people are like taking more money for streaming.
So yeah, check this. Paramount Global is laying off 800 people. This came out, you know, the almost the second week of February, because it It's representing 3% of its staff, and this is just a day after announcing record high Super Bowl viewership.
Wow.
They decided to lay off. Just unreal when you think about that. Apple, I don't know if you saw that news. They just shelved and got done, decided that they weren't going to do their car anymore because they were trying to compete and make an EV vehicle with Tesla. 10 years, just squashed it, and now they're transferring those employees to their AI sector or relocating them or whatever,
Wow.
giving them that option, kind of like what you had. But could you imagine not only
working on a project for 10 years and
10
then being
years,
told, oh, nope.
it's no more. And we're talking about a vehicle that people were excited for. I mean, you know what's happening with the Apple Vision Pros. You connect that with their actual Apple vehicle. Just its potential alone is going to outsell Tesla. Because
Right.
obviously Tesla complements with the iPhone, but they don't have their own phone. Like the iPhone would end up being the key type of deal
Right.
on that. And I know I'm veering off on that, but
No,
still,
but
like,
there was potential
there was potential there. So now I think what they're really focusing on that sector is the shift in just maximizing Apple CarPlay. Because if you have an EV vehicle, like I know the Fords do very well with their Mach-E's or any of their EV lineups, that Apple CarPlay now can not only occupy the front screen, but it can also occupy the dash, like the whole cluster.
Right.
You can have the map right there in between with the speedometer and all those
CarPlay
things.
is cool. I get it.
CarPlay is dope, so that makes sense. But how many employees do you really need for that? You feel me?
It's like already built.
And we're talking about AI. So again, these people are just monitoring and coding if they're lucky to code. If not, they're just monitoring it and fixing bugs. You don't need that many people for that. Eventually, those people are going to be out of a job and an opportunity. That's just one of the things. The U.S. Army is eliminating 24,000 positions, which many are currently vacant, as part of a restructuring plan. That was written by Forbes.
How does that work? Because these people signed up for a certain period of time.
Well, I'm sure they get placed somewhere else, kind of similar.
Okay.
But that position no longer exists in the
So
Army.
if you created a career in the Army based off of that position,
That one position, because that's the thing is you only advance in that one rank. It's what you're talking about, being able to be versatile and go through that adversity and put many different hats on. That's what it's going to take in the workforce. You can't just do the one thing over and over. The assembly line is done. For humans, they got robots doing that.
right?
Robots build everything on most parts. The machines do. You just have humans monitoring it, taking the items off or whatever. But eventually that's going to be gone too.
Wow.
Because why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
So it's just it's one of those
scary.
things, man. Like if you haven't had to experience this in this time period, last year, whatever, since the pandemic, I really hats off to you. Anybody that has, again, I feel for you. We feel for
100%.
you. It's a real deal thing, and that's really why I wanted to really make this and highlight this for an episode, because it deserves it. And we have, based off of the facts that I have and your just overall insight and experience, it's a great discussion, because this is stuff that, we're in contact with every day, not just with us, but with our circles as well.
Yeah.
It's what we all talk about based off of what we're doing. So
100%. No, this is a good topic, and I mean, just kind of hits home for both of us. So it's always good to talk about things that we're experienced in. But also we just want to, show empathy and reach out to those that might be struggling in this space
Yeah.
and make sure that they understand we're always thinking of them, and really just trying to report on news that matters.
Matters, and we're not just, these aren't op-eds all the way. These are just facts that I'm researching and putting to the table and asking how we feel about it. Can't control those type of reactions with it, but that's all based on the numbers. If the numbers weren't there, we wouldn't have this conversation. So, we got to be as accountable as possible as a people and as a society. And I know during these hard times, it's, more of a every man for himself type of mentality, every woman for themselves type of mentality. But, that can't just be the only focus, because I think now more than ever, we're realizing that we can control our dollar more if we support those small businesses, or we get those startups going and really invest in that. Because if you're going to put in all that time for somebody else, why wouldn't you? And the only reason I'm saying it like this is because this woman right next to me says that to me every single time in my moments of doubt or in my moments of uncertainty with how this is all going to work out. But you've always reverted back to that with it, baby. And it's really refreshing to hear and have, because I appreciate it. I appreciate that you can see the value beyond a paycheck and know that, yes, I'm working. This is work to produce this. My music, producing that takes work. The content, that's a full-time job at the end of it. And obviously, I'm not doing that for nothing, but I'm also not going to overextend myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm also not going to sell myself out completely and have to change my entire identity.
Right.
The entire point of my process is to maintain my integrity to as 100% as possible, with the understanding that I have to have some flexibility if I want to be in the spotlight, in front of a camera, even behind the scenes like that, whatever the case may be. It's just, understand that you have that ability. It just might not be, quote unquote, the most attractive or the prettiest or anything like that to the outside world, but who cares? If I gave a damn about that, I wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
We wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't even be the person that I am.
Yeah.
Because I would be so caught up in trying to please that standard, which I used to be that guy. I've lived that life. And that's just as depressing and demoralizing for you, because you succeed, but you don't feel fulfilled. And it's just not working. And it's obviously, you can blame the job because it's easy to, that's what you're encountering. But deep down, that job is always going to be that job, if not worse. So you have to internalize that as much as possible and say, what do I really want? Why do I really want these things? How do I get what I want? And understand, again, it's not an overnight thing.
It's not overnight. And you just have to, bet on yourself.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing, is betting on yourself, believing in yourself, figuring out who you are and what you want to stand for, because then you can put yourself in positions where everything works out in your favor, and you're standing on integrity, like you said, like everything you're moving and the way you approach the world, approach businesses with integrity.
Just understand that it's not for nothing. You feel me? Like, you can't look at it that way, or like, oh, what's the point? Like I said, one foot after the other. Just keep moving. Mm-hmm. If you're slow and steady for an entire year straight versus just sporadically on and off sprinting, I bet you go a lot further slow and steady. And it's 100%. A lot easier to manage.
It's a lot easier to manage.
And eventually you can crank up the pace when it's obtainable and manageable. And that's the example that I want to give through my art always, is to keep grinding. And that's where say less comes into play. You don't have to say nothing. KG, keep grinding. So, like I said, baby, I really appreciate your insight. Thank you for this conversation. Did you add anything that you wanted to add?
No,
Talk
thank
to
you
the
for always
people.
holding space, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you like, subscribe. All of our handles will be available on the channel.
And I think we'll also try to link the articles you were talking about in the description too, so that they know.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that's something that I probably wasn't going to do until you said it.
Yeah,
I'm going to just
so
keep
they
it
can know
$1,000.
and get their insight.
But yeah, so now, I try to sign off on something. Hopefully, again, I don't get flagged. Eventually, if we get flagged, one thing that I look at it as, or if we got like sued per se, is we kind of made it. Side note, you know what I'm saying? If they're coming at us because they're like, "Hey, you're using our stuff, pay us." It's like, "Hey, you recognize that they listening at that point." So like that's cool, and we'll definitely cross that bridge. Not trying to cheat anybody of that, because really the idea is, again, I don't own the rights to this music that I'm about to share, but when you hear it, you go out to yourself and you give them your money. You get that money.
Go back and listen
You
to
just
that
go
song.
scream it, because I mean this is a classic song. It all falls in play, and it's kind of wild because this was in the 1980s when this song came out. I'm like real big into the 80s music right now in general. It's by Zapp and Roger. Don't even have to give you the title. If you know Zapp and Roger, you know the song that it is. But if you don't, it's Computer Love. So until next time, baby, take care.
Bye.